first off, tell us how you and the players are feeling coming into what feels like a massive game.
Yeah, they're all big games now. I know I've been asked this question quite a bit about this particular game, but of course they're all really big. Between now and the end of the season, I think it's the business end of the season that we spoke of previously. This is kind of like a unique game for us, one that we don't have very often, but hopefully in the future we'll have more often. And yeah, it's a really exciting time. Players have been good this week. Preparation has gone well. We were able to use the pitch yesterday, which was great, and we really appreciate that support from the ground staff. And yeah, we're really looking forward to being here tomorrow in front of our supporters.
So it's a unique sort of obviously game in terms of the season being at the Etihad. Last season's game was a bit cagey at times. Would a better performance show the development of this team?
Well, yeah, but I think there were many factors behind last season. It's always going to be cagey. It's a Manchester derby, it's both teams want the bragging rights, and that day was a stalemate. They probably had the share of the first half. We had lion's share of the second half. We probably were not our normal selves because, like I say, it's a unique game. It's not something we get to experience very often, any of us. And of course, moving forward, it would be really nice if we had it more often, because then it would become and start to feel more normal for us.
Realistically, what has to change for it to happen more?
No, I think things are moving in the right direction. Of course, some teams really commit to it, and it's probably a big headache for a lot of ground staff up and down the country because it's big demands. And you see some of the teams, as an example, Bristol, their men's team play there, their women's team play, all of their fixtures there, and there's also rugby there as well. So, of course, I think the balance has got to be right. And of course, when we are talking about Pep and his team, they're competing on all fronts. So the calendar is really, really busy. And obviously this game takes place tomorrow in an international break for the men. So it's perfect in that sense. But I think gradual progression for us will be maybe doing it a few times next season. I think that's a logical step.
Chatting to Marc Skinner yesterday, he said that it really feels like they need a win in Manchester United right now. Obviously they're in a very different position to when you played them this time last season. So how different a threat are they going to be this time?
Well, firstly, I just wanted to congratulate Mark and Laura on the birth of their second child. I think that's amazing news for them. But yeah, I think, of course, we all need to win. I think it's really important at this stage of the season, so I understand that completely. And yeah, they're not too dissimilar from what they were last year. Obviously, they lost a couple of players and recruited some players in as well, which sometimes can take a little bit of time for players to settle. But of course, those games are tight. When we played at Old Trafford, of course, we were the victorious team, but we had our moments where we needed to suffer, and we did that very, very well, and we recovered very well and turned the game around in the space of a few minutes. And we knew that the Continental Cup game was tight as well. There was a lot on that game. It was a big performance from us, but the margins are always going to be fairly tight in this type of fixture. And why? Because players are going to be fighting. They're going to be fighting so hard and working so hard. And yeah, of course, we obviously focus on the opposition that we play. We're aware of their threats, but of course we always try and make it about what we do, and we know that if we can play our game the way we want to play it, then we have a good chance, not a guarantee, but a good chance of being successful.
Finally, you're going to look one game ahead. So what will it mean if you beat your rivals in front of 40,000? What will it mean for the rest of the season? The emphasis could it be for the rest of the season?
Yeah, huge. We know that game at Old Trafford was a big one for us. It really pushed us to go on that run we went on, which was 12 games winning streak. 10 wins for us last weekend against Brighton in the WSL, I think is fantastic in any season. And yeah, of course, nothing changes in our outlook regardless of what happens tomorrow, but what a lift it will be for us. It just continues in our confidence, and it really gives us a good opportunity. It will be down then to the next game. The focus will turn to the next game, as boring as it sounds. But yeah, I think 6 games left of the season now. We want to be in the next opportunity when we play Liverpool next week. We want to be in the same situation we are now, joint on points. We feel we can catch that goal difference up. It's only a small one, but we can't neglect what's in front of us. And I think tomorrow, it starts with tomorrow and being really up for this battle, which we will be, and making sure we're calm in everything we do.
Thanks, Anton. Hi, Gareth.
Hi.
Just given the fact that obviously there was those 2 cup defeats, how good is it to have such a big game to kind of bounce back from in a way? Because if you get a result in this game, it you know, you mentioned the business end of the season. It feels like that could give you a really big push for that final.
Well, we already bounced back. I thought the players were phenomenal last week, the way we attacked that Brighton game. We knew exactly what game it was going to be. Sometimes you're never sure if they change some slight nuances in how they do things, but we prepared for that game and they executed the game plan really well. The thing that pleased me the most was there were high levels of trust in what we do. And when we have that, we see really good things from this group. And I have to be honest, the majority of this season, 90% of the time, we've been so good. I think we've had one half in maybe 50 halves of football this season against Spurs in the second half where we just weren't quite ourselves for one reason or another, and that can happen. I think that's still really something to be admired from this group, and tomorrow's no different. We try to keep it normal in terms of playing the game and not the occasion. I think that's really important. We don't need to drum it up any more than what it is. We understand the implications of results in terms of what they look like, but we have to enjoy that. We have to enjoy this moment. You know, we have to really commend the players in terms of how well we've done in being in this position, because it's, you know, there is a little bit of space now between second and third and fourth as well. So I think it's important for us to try and remain in there as best we possibly can, and I think we will do.
And in the last derby at Old Trafford, there was a bit of fight in the game. You know, I remember speaking with you afterwards about, you know, Chloe Kelly celebrating, Phil, Crown, etc. How much do you like that part of a derby where, you know, there's a little bit more fight in the game that you might not ordinarily get?
Yeah, it's good. It's hard to control. I think as a coach, it's really hard to keep the emotions intact and sensible and calm. And of course, we're never going to stop anyone from celebrating, because it's a letting out of emotion. And yeah, only sometimes these types of games where that happens. And if that game been played at Leigh Sports Village, would it have been slightly different in the way we felt? Probably. I think when you're on that type of arena, and the arena we're going to go into tomorrow as well, which thankfully, when you look at the women's game and where it's come, seems to be more the norm now. These players have played in a lot of big games for both teams tomorrow. That's great, you know, whether it's in club football or international football. And yeah, the more that happens, the better the game is going to be.
Finally, team news. Is there anything that you need to update?
No, not especially. We're very similar to last weekend. You know, we're in a good place in that sense. You know, the performance team are doing really well, medical department doing great, and the players, I think, you know, the way that they're recovering from game to game this week has been slightly different because it's given us a little bit more of a breather, and the games are like that now between now and the end of the season, where we have one game weeks, which is good in some sense, that we get good recovery time and opportunities to train, which I think is really important.
Thanks, Emma. We'll go to Zoom now. Mike.
Hi Gareth, how are you?
Hi Mike, good, thanks.
Good. What's the key thing tomorrow that you have to get right to win the game, that your team has to do in a derby where fine margins settle thing? What's the key thing for you?
It's hard to identify one key thing. I think obviously our build-up play is really important to how we progress up the pitch together as a team. Then it'll be dependent on obviously what the opposition do. So we have some concepts that we'll work to and we've prepared for that we feel will really help us in the game tomorrow. And of course, the probably most simplest one would be our final action. I think, you know, this team in every game we played, even against like the very best teams in the league, we've created a lot of good scenarios. And I think it'll always be about, can we create really good chances? If we create good chances, we have a better chance of finishing them off. And that's always going to be the success or non-success of most teams, is that final bit. And as simple as it sounds in terms of the game being played in both boxes, it never changes. We've really improved our defensive work this season. We're really proud of the goals against that we've given away. We've been really frugal in that, and that starts with the whole of the team. So yeah, I think it's like I say, tight, fine margins as always, as it is in this league, as it can be sometimes in these types of games, and those things are going to be really important for us tomorrow.
Every game, I think you've already said, excuse me, is must win. How do you go with the pressure?
I don't really see it as pressure. I think it's great to be involved in these types of games. I mean, what more could you want? You know, Manchester derby being played at the Etihad in front of great support. on television. I think, what more do you want? The pressure comes from the high standards that we want and we want to achieve. I think that's where we put ourselves under that bit of pressure, that can we perform, can we produce a level which is going to be good enough for us to win the game. And we, like I said, more often than not this season, we've done that really well. We have to understand and support the players and support the group when that doesn't happen. But again, we know if we get our detail right in the way that we play, we'll be fine. And yeah, the pressure side of it is, I think sometimes you just have to control what you can control. We can't control the emotion and the feeling of every single person who's probably going to be in the stadium tomorrow, but what we have to control is what we do on the pitch, what I do on the sideline, what we talk about in the dressing room, all of those things. And I've always said previously that whether we're playing in a Manchester derby tomorrow, whether we're playing in a Champions League final, hopefully one day soon, whether we're playing in cup finals, we try to really normalise it and play the game, which doesn't change. It's the pitch with 2 goals, referees and 22 players. So I think it's just about playing the game and not the occasion.
Ellie, did you prefer playing first where you could put the pressure on Chelsea, or do you prefer knowing what they've done and seeing what that then means for your team?
Always on what we do. If we win the game, whether we play first or play last, it's the same scenario. I mean, I think what I would say is when we have played in that first game on a Saturday, we've done it this season a couple of times now after the international break. We played Aston Villa, then we played Everton, both home games, and we have a similar scenario tomorrow, albeit not from international break. I think it's always good when you win the game, then you can probably enjoy the rest of the weekend and see what happens with the other games. But of course, I've always said that we have to. The tendency here will be at times, or particularly for players or for coaches, is to kind of take your eye off the ball and start to look at what others are doing and hoping for a result. When actually, you just need to control what we can control. And when you look at where we are with 6 games left, we win all of those games, we have a really good chance of winning the league, and that's all we're concentrating on.
Good luck for tomorrow, mate.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. We'll go to Eleanor next.
Hi.
Hi.
I just wonder, with the stage of the season and your position in the table, does this feel like maybe the biggest derby yet?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, it'd be hard to deny that. I think, for us, certainly. The games are really important now, but whether it's Man United this week, Liverpool next week, West Ham after that, Bristol City away, those games are super important as well. Every game is so important now because obviously the margin for error is really tight, and any kind of drop point here or there can be quite damaging. So yeah, we don't underestimate any game, but I'd probably have to agree and say, yeah, it's one of the biggest derbies.
And do you know how many people you're expecting, what size the crowd's anticipated to be?
No. I mean, hopefully we can get a really good crowd in. I'm sure we will do. I think that's what we're here for. We've always had a really good connection with our supporters. I think we go down to Brighton last week. It's a hell of a long way, and our loyal supporters are always there, and I think that's really admirable. And they'll be here tomorrow. We know they'll always be here. And then obviously we're looking at trying to capture the imaginations of as many young people as we possibly can. And I think we've worked really hard on that this season to create an identity in terms of how we do things and how we engage with our supporters and the football we try to play. And hopefully they can see that we're moving in the right direction. And I'm sure the support's going to be there tomorrow, and they're going to be right behind us.